If you ever look up at a modern cruise ship, it is literally a floating city. Water park, go-kart, casino, you name it. But what is even more mind-blowing than the size of these modern ships is the invisible economics of companies that controls them. If you book a cruise today, there is a massive probability that your money is going to one of just three corporations. Together, Carnival Corporation, Royal Caribbean Group, and Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings control over 75% of the entire global cruise market. They are the undisputed titans of the ocean. There is the fourth one, and that is MSC, but today we will talk about the big three. But how did they get so big? How did three companies manage to effectively control the seven seas? And more importantly, what is their ultimate master plan now? I'll give you a hint. It involves buying up actual islands to ensure that not a single dollar of your vacation budget accidentally goes to a local economy. Today, we are diving deep into the economics, the strategies, and the staggering numbers behind the big three cruise lines. So grab your life jacket because we're setting sail into the billion-dollar business of cruising. To understand the hold these companies have on the market, we first need to look at the staggering numbers they pull in. We have fresh data from the end of 2025, and the financial figures are absolutely astronomical. Let's start with Carnival Corporation. When you hear Carnival, you might just think of the fun ships with the giant red, white, and blue funnels. But Carnival Corporation is actually a massive umbrella company. They own 9 different cruise brands, including Princess Cruises, Holland America Line, Costa Cruises in Europe, Cunard, famous for the iconic Queen Mary II, and the ultra-luxury Seabourn line. In total, Carnival commands a global fleet of roughly 93 ships. In 2025, Carnival brought in a mind-numbing $26.6 billion in revenue, posting a net income of $2.76 billion. Next up is the great innovator, Royal Caribbean Group. If Carnival is the volume king, Royal Caribbean is the master of extreme scale and spectacle. They operate 69 ships across fully owned brands like Royal Caribbean International, Celebrity Cruises, and Silversea Cruises. Royal Caribbean is famous for building the absolute largest ships on the planet. Because they pack so many premium experiences onto these mega ships, their profit margins are incredible. In 2025, Royal Caribbean generated $17.9 billion in revenue, walking away with nearly $4.3 billion in net income. That's right, they made significantly more pure profit than Carnival despite having fewer ships and less total revenue. Finally, we have the third player, Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings. Norwegian operates 34 ships across 3 brands, Norwegian Cruise Line, Oceania Cruises, and Regent Seven Seas Cruises. They revolutionized the industry with the concept of freestyle cruising, throwing out the rigid dinner times and formal dress codes in favor of total flexibility. While they are the smallest of the big three, they're still a financial juggernaut. In 2025, Norwegian pulled in $9.8 billion in revenue, walking away with a net income of $423 million. So how did 3 companies end up owning the ocean? The answer comes down to 2 massive corporate strategies: aggressive consolidation and extreme economics of scale. Back in the 1970s and 80s, the cruise industry was highly fragmented. There were dozens of small, independent cruise lines operating a handful of ships each. But cruising is an incredibly capital-intensive business. Building a single modern cruise ship costs anywhere from $800 million to over $2 billion. Small companies simply couldn't get the financing to keep up with the arms race of building bigger and better ships. Carnival and Royal Caribbean realized that the only way to dominate was to buy the competition. Instead of just fighting for market share, they simply bought the market. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, it was a corporate feeding frenzy. Carnival swallowed up Costa, Princess, and Holland America. Royal Caribbean acquired Celebrity Cruises and eventually Seabourn. Norwegian purchased Prestige Cruise Holdings to get their hands on Oceania and Regent Seven Seas. By operating under massive corporate umbrellas, these giants created impenetrable economies of scale. When Carnival buys toilet paper, they're buying it for nearly 100 ships at once. When Royal Caribbean negotiates for fuel, they're buying millions of tons of it. The operational cost per passenger drops dramatically when you operate at this scale. Furthermore, they completely changed the ships themselves. Ships went from carrying 1,000 passengers to 3,000, and now over 7,000. It costs relatively the same amount of money to pay the captain and sail the ship from Miami to the Bahamas, whether there are 2,000 people on board or 7,000. But having a captive audience on the ship simply wasn't enough. The Big Three soon realized they had a massive leak in their business model. Historically, a cruise ship would sail to popular destinations like Nassau in the Bahamas, Cozumel in Mexico, or Ocho Rios in Jamaica. Passengers would disembark, wander into the town, buy drinks at a local bar, pay a local tour guide to go snorkeling, and buy souvenirs from a local vendor. All of that money, millions per port call, was bleeding out of the cruise line's ecosystem and injecting directly into the local economy. The cruise lines realized something profound. What if they controlled the destination too? This is the most brilliant and aggressive strategy the Big Three are employing right now. Royal Caribbean completely changed the game with Perfect Day at Coco Cay in the Bahamas. They poured $250 million into transforming a private island into a massive exclusive theme park. Here's the financial genius of it. When you get off the ship at Coco Cay, you're still inside Royal Caribbean's wallet. You pay for the water park with your ship card. You buy the cocktails with your ship beverage package. You rent the cabana directly from the cruise line. Every single dollar you spend on that island goes right back to Royal Caribbean's headquarters in Miami. The strategy is so insanely profitable that Coco Cay quickly became the highest-rated destination for Royal Caribbean, and guests actually pay a premium to sail on itineraries that stop there. Seeing this massive success, the competitors had no choice but to double down. Carnival recently launched Celebration Key, a massive exclusive destination on Grand Bahama Island, designed to capture that exact same magic and that exact same guest spending. Norwegian continues to heavily develop their own private destinations like Great Stirrup Cay. Beyond the private islands, the economics of these companies are full of fascinating quirks. For instance, consider the fuel. A modern cruise ship burns an immense amount of fuel. To protect themselves from wild swings in global oil prices, companies like Royal Caribbean and Norwegian engage in massive fuel hedging, locking in prices months or years in advance. Carnival, however, famously chooses not to hedge its fuel, exposing them more directly to the open market, which has occasionally cost them significantly when oil prices spiked. Then there's the sheer logistics of human consumption. A megaship like Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas holds nearly 10,000 people when you combine passengers and crew. To feed that floating city for a single week, the logistics team has to load tens of thousands of eggs, thousands of pounds of steak, and oceans of alcohol. We also have to talk about the debt. The year 2020 was an apocalyptic event for the cruise industry. The entire global fleet was anchored, generating zero revenue, but these ships still cost millions of dollars a day just to maintain. To survive, the Big Three had to take on colossal amounts of debt. Yet their financial comeback has been nothing short of miraculous. Demand for cruising didn't just return, it exploded after the pandemic. The industry calls it revenge travel, and it has pushed ticket prices and onboard spending to record highs in 2025 and 2026. Another fascinating fact is that these companies are masters of international tax avoidance. Despite having massive headquarters buildings in Miami, you'll notice their ships fly the flags of countries like the Bahamas, Panama, and Bermuda. By incorporating overseas and registering their ships under foreign flags of convenience, the Big Three legally avoid paying most U.S. corporate income taxes. Furthermore, it allows them to bypass strict U.S. labor laws, meaning they can hire international crews from developing nations at wages far below the American minimum wage. The Big Three, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian, didn't just capture 75% of the cruise industry accidentally. They executed a masterclass in corporate consolidation. They swallowed their rivals. They scaled up their hardware, building billion-dollar megaships that act as entirely self-contained economic ecosystems. And when they realized they were losing money at the ports, they literally bought the ports and constructed private islands. So the next time you step onto a cruise ship, swipe your room card, and step off onto a pristine, private beach, just remember, you are participating in one of the most perfectly engineered, impenetrable business models on Earth. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.